For experience. Vote for me, Luke Fleener. This ad paid for by the committee to elect Fleener for sheriff.
The economy was booming. Business was thriving. But then the greatest health and economic crisis of our generation shook our country. Entrepreneurs asked, how will my business and employees survive? Insperity was built for times like this. Driven by our mission to help businesses succeed so communities prosper, we were there to help them navigate their way and ultimately rise above. Insperity, HR that makes a difference.
On the field or in the field, winning is a mindset, growing and evolving throughout the season. That's why farmers pushing themselves to be the best plant DeKalb brand corn, offering exclusive genetics and whole farm solutions for consistent yield potential season after season.
This week we preview Iowa State's Big 12 opener at TCU. The Horned Frogs have yet to play while Iowa State comes in at 0-1. In recent years, Iowa State and TCU have had two of the best defenses in the Big 12. And that side of the ball will once again feature many star players in this one, including all Big 12 safeties Trevon Merrick of the Horned Frogs and Iowa State's Greg Eisworth. Brock Purdy looks to bounce back this week. Purdy led the Cyclones to a win over TCU a year ago in Ames, earning Big 12 Player of the Week honors, throwing for 2 touchdowns and rushing for 2 more.
Wherever you compete, winning has roots. Perform at your best with DeKalb brand corn.
Always read and follow grain marketing and all other stewardship practices and pesticide label directions.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
That's right. That's where we are. And boy, that day I had to take off for being sick yesterday has thrown me for a loop. Keep forgetting to turn on my microphone, which is never a good thing. And I must have forgotten that Terry Menke, City Councilman Menke, was not going to be here today. And I deduced that because he's not here. I think he did say something last week about having to be somewhere. I don't know where it was. Some sort of professional thing for men his age to see if he can keep up with his optometry practice, I suppose, which I don't know. He looks like he's got all his marbles to me. You know, he's about 6 weeks younger than I am. So despite what he may say on the air occasionally, it's not like he's a lot younger than I am. And I will have to admit, when you get this age, you do lose a step or two. And I'm not as sharp mentally as I once was, not as glib. You know, I listened to some recordings I made years and years ago of my disc jockey days around the country. I worked in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I worked at a country station up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I spent a couple of years, a little bit more than that, out in North Carolina, where I was the boss of the beach. A kid from Algona, Iowa, the boss of the beach. Those were good years. You know, North Carolina is a different place than Iowa is, and those who live on the mid-Atlantic coast are different people than we have here. But we're all Americans. You know, there are some people in North Carolina that I met who are still ticked about the Civil War. I guess that's some sort of a Southern thing. 3 of my great uncles died at Andersonville prison camp. They were from the Galena, Illinois area, and they were captured at Gettysburg and died of poor nutrition and well, you know the story of Andersonville. It was a hell on earth, and I think the South, those in the South who were responsible for that, should have paid a higher price. And by the way, there's another side to it. The Union wouldn't do a prisoner exchange for whatever reason. Now, I can't remember. If any of you know the story of Andersonville prison, now would be a time to call me and tell me. 515-955-1400. But anyway, my time in North Carolina was a pleasant time, and I've actually reconnected with a couple of people that I knew out there years and years ago. But I guess what I'm getting to is I listened to these old recordings, and I got to tell you, I was trying to be so cute. That's the way radio was at the time. You had all these DJs on the air, and they're always saying this. Boy, that girl looks like this, or that politician's a blockhead, or whatever. I mean, I'm kind of like now. Only not as bad. Not nearly as bad. By the way, tomorrow Charles Clayton will be here. We're rotating Thursdays with he and Representative Ann Meyer. And looking forward to talking with Charles. I would like to throw something out here for you folks. What is your biggest concern in the state representative race? Not the Donald Trump, Joe Biden face-off. Once again, we have these appalling choices brought to us by these two major political parties. But for Fort Dodge, what are your biggest concerns? I really think Darrell Beal's position on guns didn't help him. Darrell got caught in a bad year for Democrats and he was voted out. Darrell was a good guy. He was another one of the older Democrats who would reach across the aisle and stretch their hands out to different factions and shake hands and try to work something out, or say, well, listen, we're not going to agree, and that's it. Not like these screaming, angry hyenas who are in the street now. Oh, my God. Screaming for blood. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Breonna Taylor thing. Down in Louisville, the decision on who should be charged, if anyone, has been released just in the last couple of hours. And apparently the officer who shot and killed Breonna Taylor is not going to be charged with murder. The other three officers are not going to be charged directly in the death of Breonna Taylor, the tragic death. Of course, all of it, when someone is killed like this, it's tragic. It's terrible. So the results are that the one officer who fired and actually killed Breonna Taylor, he is being charged with criminal negligence or criminal homicide, or not criminal homicide, but gosh, I should have called it up on my screen and left it there. Now I can't see it. But anyway, the point is that Linda Sarsour was there. Remember Linda Sarsour? She's that Muslim woman who has been prominent in the culture in the last several years. She was one of the leaders of the Women's March on Washington, along with Bob Bland, whose real name is Glennis or Gloria or something, and Tamika Mallory. Those three women have left that movement because of anti-Semitic remarks by the likes of Linda Sarsour. Well, Linda Sarsour was in Louisville, and I don't know who's funding her, but we could find out, I suppose. Linda Sarsour was in Louisville, and she has called on everyone to rise up. Rise up. Now, believe me, this decision was heavily scrutinized. This decision was gone over with a fine-tooth comb. This decision was thought about because they knew the consequences if they missed something or produced a result that made it look like the city of Louisville and their police department was trying to cover up a murder. They didn't find those things. So they brought forth their true and honest verdict. Linda Sarsour, of course, has been demanding that everybody rise up all over the country and to start the burning and looting and that sort of thing again. I guess the question is, when are some of these people going to be charged with sedition? When are these people going to be charged with being traitors to their country? Linda, born in New York, the daughter of Palestinian refugees. Yeah, Palestinian refugees who came to our country seeking shelter. The same with Ilhan Omar, who not that long ago, was in a refugee camp in the Middle East somewhere. Believe me, you don't want to be in a refugee camp in the Middle East somewhere. But Ilhan comes over here and demands that we live to her principles. Sarsour comes here and demands that we live by our Constitution according to her. But she is committing sedition. Why is she not under arrest? Sedition, by the way, and here's the definition, is overt conduct, such as speech and organization that tends towards insurrection against the established order. What has Linda Sarsour been doing? Exactly this. She organizes, and her speech, it's like fire coming out of her mouth, but she's not unusual. Those who support the Democratic Party have these people around them. Every party has their wackos. The Republican Party certainly does. But the Democratic Party refuses to renounce their crazy people. Have you heard Joe Biden? Have you heard old sleepy Joe Biden demand that the rioting stop? Oh, I'm sorry, he did. Just this month, after 3 or 4 months of continuous chaos, when Biden saw it going against the Democratic Party, until then, of course, Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, and all these other people actually blamed what was happening in his city on Donald Trump. Because everything is Trump's fault. Everything. I mean, the derecho or whatever it's called, that was Trump's fault. You could have an earthquake, it would be Trump's fault, according to these people. They're panicky. They're panicky, and they're throwing everything they can. They're throwing everything they can. We used to call it throwing stuff against the barn. Well, you know what I'm talking about. We used to call it throwing feces at the barn, and if it would stick, that was a good thing. Yeah, I mean, we were a lot more crude back then. But that's what the Democrats are doing. They're just trying to connect every bad thing that ever happened to Donald Trump. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. It covers up. They have a colorless, odorless candidate and no real policy. And the little policy they have is guided by angry feminists. I mean, feminists, for the most part, run the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer just looks pathetic, doesn't he? He comes out there droning with his glasses on the end of his nose. Doesn't he have a marketing consultant? How about a personal stylist? Chuck, get the glasses off the end of your nose. Anyway, in Louisville, Kentucky, Brett Hankinson, who was a police officer, was fired last June. Former officer Hankinson was indicted on 3 counts of wanton endangerment, in the first degree. That's as a result of a Jefferson County grand jury announcement and consideration. A warrant has been issued for former officer Hankinson, and his bond is set at $15,000 cash. No charges were announced against the 2 other officers involved in the raid, and they are Miles Cosgrove and Jonathan Mattingly, who was shot in the leg and underwent surgery. I don't know. Do you suppose that's those peaceful people in that apartment where Breonna was killed, shot, this officer? I don't know. There's no excuse for the death of Breonna Taylor. I mean, it was a no-knock warrant, and Officer Hankinson apparently went in and fired several times, and one of those bullets killed 26-year-old Breonna Taylor, and that's just a tragedy. And Officer Hankinson will be dealt with by our justice system. What we really don't need, and what we need our liberals and Democrats to finally and at last do, is push back and denounce the likes of Linda Sarsour. But they never, ever will. Joe Biden's afraid of those people. Nancy Pelosi's afraid of those people. They're afraid if they say anything, Sarsour and her ilk will be encamped on their front lawn, demanding they resign. And you know what? They might have to. They might get canceled. Oh, gosh. One can only hope.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
making radio great again.
It's 226.
Now, more than ever, we need our leaders to focus on practical solutions for the families of Webster County.
I'm Ann Meyer. During my first term in the Iowa House, I worked to ensure safe and affordable child care options, increase access to mental health services, and address rural Iowa's shortage of healthcare professionals. As your state representative, I'll continue to use my healthcare and education experience to serve our community faithfully.
Ann Meyer, experienced leader, community servant. Proven results for Webster
Sorrel is here for a while.
Well, usually when there's a harvest going on and it's a good crop, we should have a good crop despite all the nonsense that's happened. That will, how do you say it in market world, exert downward pressure on the commodity prices.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
I am impressed on that
Thank
one.
you.
I mean, that is,
Never mind, I could deal with some other farmers. Did you see what happened today in the market? Corn got the hell beat out of it. No. It's exerting downward pressure on the commodity markets. You see, that sounds so much better.
yeah. I'm more professional that way, which is, I know it's hard to do for you sometimes, but that was good.
I never really considered myself a professional at anything.
Oh, okay.
The term scared me. I don't know why.
Oh.
I don't know what it was. So we're talking that we have spiked now, as you believe, and others.
It's possible. I mean, you can't. It indicates that whether it's a true spike top, we won't know for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Well, we are expecting a decent crop in Iowa anyway this year, aren't we?
We are.
That's what I thought. Is it going to be a bumper crop? Because there's usually a bumper crop. Not in
Iowa, because we had the drought. We had the how do you pronounce it?
DeRoche. Yeah, that wiped out. How many millions of acres were affected by the DeRoche?
Oh, millions.
Millions.
East. Yeah.
Oh,
I've been gone for a while, so I can't remember the exact figure of what they were figuring for it was millions of acres out east. Now the farmers I've talked to when I've got back here this morning or today have been out beans anywhere from 40 to 50 bushels per acre, which is not as good as last year, but a little bit better than what they were expecting because of the dry weather. And corn about the same thing. They're getting some yields that aren't as good as last year, but like I said, a little bit better than what they thought they would get because of all the dryness and stuff. So
sure. Well, we have to again give a big pat on the back to Iowa State Universities and the seed corn companies for all the hybrid research they did over the years. If this happened 50 years ago, it would be devastating for farmers and the economy, but we have a much more resilient crop thanks to scientists. I know there are those people with tattoos on their face and earrings in their nose who don't agree, that they think that there's some sort of plot to change their lives through a GMO, but I would have to say something else caused them to get tattoos over their entire body, not GMOs. I don't think so.
Maybe it was an OMG.
That could be. This is kind of a sad story, but years ago I was on the East Coast doing radio, and there was a rock station in Virginia right across the border from where I was, and it went by the title of Rock 98. Well, these DJs, you got some government deliverance in your office or what?
No.
Okay. Anyway, there was a station called Rock 98, and the disc jockeys, morons that they were trying to be cute. What a surprise. And they started joking that they would pay $30,000 to anybody who got Rock 98 tattooed on his forehead.
How much?
$30,000. Now, this was in the 80s.
What do you want?
So this is probably like $60,000 now, but it was a nice little chunk of money. So this poor guy goes out and gets Rock 98 tattooed on his forehead with a sunburst, red and yellow flames coming out of it on his forehead, and comes into the radio station to claim his prize. Well, nobody wanted to talk to him. They were freaked. We didn't even know that was a joke. We didn't mean that you would actually get the money. We didn't think anybody would actually tattoo Rock 98 on their forehead. Well, so this guy has to go back to his neighborhood where he is ridiculed mercilessly for being so dumb. And the poor guy tried to commit suicide. Well, he didn't. He recovered long enough to call a lawyer. All the on-air people were fired instantaneously, and the radio station group had to pay a big, big settlement to the lawyer and the guy. And last I heard, he had cosmetic surgery to have the Rock 98 removed from his forehead. But when I was teaching broadcasting, I always told my students that story as a warning against being too cute on the air, because you never know what's going to happen.
True.
Some people are very suggestible.
That's right, and that happened to another person we knew on the radio years ago.
And what, they had Rock 98 tattooed on their
No,
forehead?
no. Doing silly things on the radio and lost their jobs doing it.
Yes. So there's been a couple of people over the years I knew personally did exactly that.
Yeah.
And I just like to make clear I never went to medical school or anything like that. Okay, I barely got through high school. I don't have the big brain of the erotic or exotic Mike Ewing.
Uh-huh.
You're a graduate of Iowa State, aren't you?
No, that was Central.
Oh, you just went the Iowa Central way? You didn't get the undergraduate degree?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm not saying it's needed for the business that you're in. I think high school would be appropriate, or maybe even 8th grade. But, that's... As a matter of fact, you used to have to take a test to get a radio station and TV broadcast license to be on the air. It was 100 questions.
Yeah.
And it dealt with FCC law and transmitter questions. I really had to study.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was ready to take it, and Ronald Reagan came into office, and he said, no, you don't have to take it.
Oh.
Here's the new test that you have to take in order to get a license. So instead of, and the license you used to get was a big old diploma-looking thing, But Ronald Reagan liked deregulation, so he changed the whole thing. You had to be at least 14 years of age, be able to speak the English language, and not have a serious mental or mental handicap. That was it. Those 3 criterion. You couldn't.
You passed?
Somehow I did. That was really a stumbling block when we got to the, no noticeable mental infirmities, but somehow I got it done. Mike. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. So, we're recording this today with Mike Ewing, and I don't think we're exactly to the market close yet, are we, Mike? When do the markets close?
Well, grains close at 1:15.
1:15. Okay.
Livestock close at 1.
Okay. So, we're not quite there. But can you give us a heads up on the livestock?
Heads up on both cattle and hogs do have heads. I'm blank on switching over to the page. That's why I was saying that.
All right. That's quite all right.
Closed nearby October hogs up $1.17, and October cattle closed up 67 points higher.
Is cattle still a volatile market?
Any commodity can be a volatile
It
market.
can be, but it's, the wise men in Washington saw fit years ago to determine that there is such a thing as a limit. They made a law on the limit that commodity prices could crash, for example, at least
Correct.
as far as corn and soybeans. You can go up the limit, which is 30 cents, or down the limit, which is 30 cents. In other words, a farmer is protected from being wiped out completely in a couple of days, which is a good rule.
Right.
Do they have that in the livestock markets or not?
Oh, yeah. For cattle, it's 300 points per day. And, it's 300 points, I guess, also for hog creatures.
You got a lot of cattle down by where you are. Lake City used to have.
West and south. The Carroll area has a lot of cattle down there.
Right.
And So around here, not so much. More hog confinements than cattle.
Hog confinements and cattle.
More hog confinements than cattle.
All right. Okay. Well, that's all good. Gosh, I almost called you Marvelous Michael there for a while. That sounds too New York City for us here in Iowa. So I think we'll just stick with the erotic or exotic or both. So, any other news to report there, Michael?
Other than that, no. I just suffered from jet lag and the driving lag from getting home at 10 minutes after midnight this morning.
Was there the unbearable lightness of whiteness going on down in Florida while you were there when you got into your bathing suit and walked out on the beach for the first time?
Well,
or did you just stay?
We went to Clearwater Beach, and I hadn't really planned on going. I didn't know we were going to go there, so I wasn't really dressed for the occasion. far as the swimsuit goes. But I must say that there were a few women that were.
And you noticed them.
Very good scenery, yes.
Yeah. When I lived on the East Coast, I would notice that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was balding even then, so they didn't care to look back. But
well, you know.
So I got through it somehow.
Should have wore a beanie or something.
Well, that would have really looked great. You know, I was a little kid. I had a beanie. I can't remember what it was. A beanie attached to some cartoon show, and I thought I was so cool.
Oh, okay.
I walked around the neighborhood in my little beanie.
Mm-hmm.
It had blue. It was blue with white stripes coming from a white button on the top down the side of it. I was cool. Do you have the marker?
Do you have a propeller on top?
No, I did not have the
okay.
propeller. That would have been too much, I thought.
You got the economy one then.
I did.
Yeah.
Do we have a market report now or not?
Well, we haven't settled yet. Last time showing on corn is down 3/4 and down 5 3/4 on beans.
All righty then. Mike Ewing with MTE Commodities, and you can be reached at
515-544-3353.
All right, Mike, thank you very much.
Have a good day.
You too. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
Attitudes about the safety of food we eat are split, according to a new survey by the International Food Information Council. Hi, I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Tamika Sims is the Senior Director of Food Technology Communications with the Council.
About 49% of people said that they're still somewhat concerned, even when they're preparing food themselves at home. But we also see almost the exact same number of people say they're not concerned at all. It is almost an even split.
For the people who are concerned about food safety,
we heard coronavirus exposure was at the top of the list, and then food contamination.
Nearly 1 in 4 survey respondents think that meat has become less safe since the COVID-19 pandemic. But Sims says it's important to know that the coronavirus is not a food safety concern.
Even in the midst of the pandemic, the regulatory agencies that are in charge of being sure that the food is grown properly, packaged properly, stored properly before it reaches the consumer have continued to be vigilant. And there has absolutely been no evidence collected to show that the food has been a vector for carrying COVID-19 and that people should feel assured that their food is safe when they go to the grocery store or even if they eat at a restaurant.
I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
This is Brad Keselowski, driver number 2, Discount Tire Ford Mustang. Racing fans know that a quick pit stop to check the tires can give me the winning edge. The same is true for your car. Proper tire tread helps keep traction on the road in everyday driving. To check your tread, simply insert a penny, Lincoln's head first, into your tire grooves. If you can see all of Honest Abe's head, it's time to get your tires checked by a professional.
A message from the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I want to thank you for listening. We'll be back with Steve Peterson of the Webster County Farm Bureau in just a few minutes. The news is next. You are listening to KVFD Fort Dodge, Iowa. KVFD Fort Dodge, Iowa.
This is Dave Graveline. Be sure to listen to Into Tomorrow right here on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
An election prediction. Lisa Brady, Fox News. President Trump says he thinks the 2020 race will end up at the U.S. Supreme Court, telling reporters that's why it's important to have 9 justices as he prepares to name a nominee this weekend. He took questions during an event with state attorneys general on social media abuses. Meantime, a judge is telling Eric Trump he has to give a deposition soon in a New York investigation. Fox's Gernal Scott has this live.
Lisa, Eric Trump will be deposed for a New York State probe into the properties owned by the Trump Organization and how they were financed. It was to have already happened, but Eric Trump's lawyer said an extreme travel schedule for his father's reelection prevented it. New York State Attorney General Letitia James called that reason false. State Justice Arthur Engoron ruled the reason wasn't justified, saying the deposition under oath must be done by October 7th. Lisa.
Thanks, Gernal. A curfew in place and protests underway in Louisville after a grand jury's decision in a deadly police shooting. Fox's Jeff Manasso has this live.
Lisa, no charges in the police shooting death of Breonna Taylor in March during a narcotics raid in Louisville, with Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron making clear a couple of key points that officers were fired upon first by Taylor's boyfriend.
Kenneth Walker fired the shot that hit Sergeant Mattingly. There's no evidence to support that Sergeant Mattingly was hit by friendly fire from other officers. The warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant.
Though a now fired Louisville officer, Brett Hankinson, is charged by a grand jury with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for shooting into a neighboring apartment. Lisa.
Thanks, Jeff. Taylor's boyfriend telling investigators he thought an intruder was breaking in. There were no drugs found in Taylor's apartment. Big sell-off on Wall Street. The Dow down 525 at the close. America is listening to Fox News.
Progressive Motorcycle presents Road Wisdom from the Motor.
Just Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 80.
Michael Devine at AM 1400
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
with 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. We have 60 rounds of freedom at all times, as long as Biden's not in office. We'll have to get back to that later. Who's on my telephone here?
It's Steve from Farm Bureau.
As I knew it was you, Steve. This is Steve from the Webster County Farm Bureau. We couldn't have him on yesterday because I was sick. Sorry. But I'm glad to have an actual farmer engaged in farming on the air. What's the crop conditions out there where you are?
Well, it's soybeans, and I'm seeing a little bit of everything going out right now.
Are people into the corn yet?
They're starting to. I just got done with soybeans and switching things over, and I've got some neighbors that are out in corn, and seeing a little bit of everything. But I think the corn, people are surprised how good it is.
Well, I was talking with Mike Ewing a little bit earlier about that, and yeah, it seems like most farmers are going to have a good crop, maybe not a bumper crop, maybe not a great crop. I mean, our weather conditions were just too harsh this year, but we still should get a good crop. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Comparing back to, I think it was 2012, 2013, when it was so dry, my soybean yields were definitely better than then. But probably, I'd say when it's all said and done, it'll be 10% off the average or off my farm average.
Okay. Steve,
not bad, but all things considered.
Right. Yeah. This portion of the program, by the way, brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. There's a lot of talk out west where all those fires are going on in California, and they're having a terrible time out there. It just looks terrible. There's a lot of talk about climate change. Is there been any discussion about the drought conditions we've had at the Farm Bureau about climate change, or what is the Farm Bureau's position on climate change?
That's something I don't know that I can answer. I honestly, that's a good question. What our policy is. I mean, I think we recognize it that things are changing, but I'm not 100%. I mean, we talk more about conservation and things like that, where I think in California there's been a cultural shift of how they manage those forests.
Yeah.
I mean, it's critical how it's done.
Yes.
What's right, what's wrong, what's environmentally sound. But I know that's a discussion that's going to be going forward. I sure see and hear a lot of advertisements right now, especially in election year, about climate change and companies wanting to go green. It tends to, be a conversation that's received well in these election cycles.
I might have mentioned to you before, in the mid-'90s, I took the family out to Yellowstone National Park. Now, that was like the year after they had terrible fires out there. And we drove for a couple of hours through, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, there was just miles and miles and miles of desolated forest. And they had a policy out there. The federal government, of course, owns the land. And the federal government had a policy at the time of let it burn. In other words, that burning in a forest was natural. It happened down through history before human beings were around, and certainly before white men got that far. And this was a good policy, but that policy really backfired out there because a lot of animals, hundreds of animals were killed in the fire. And the damage brought on by that fire, it was estimated would take an entire generation just to have those trees and the rest of the landscape regenerate at all. So I would be curious about the policy in California, if they had some sort of let it burn policy initially. I guess they have 5. I can't believe this. They have 5 major fires in the state of California. California's a big state. I got that. But that's a lot of major fires at one time. My God.
Right.
I don't think we've had.
Yeah. I mean, as far as Farm Bureau goes, we're very, here in Iowa, ethanol has been a key function and what we, really get behind. And ethanol is deemed, a cleaner burning fuel. And that is one of the avenues that we go to address, climate change and, clean, renewable fuels. So it's definitely, it's a discussion. I'm probably, not one to even comment on how they manage things out there, because it'd be like them trying to tell us how to do things here. We kind of that sometimes happens, it seems like, but it's definitely a challenge out there. I think they've got a balance of urban areas moving into kind of remote areas, and how you make a balance there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. California can run their own business, and we can run our own business. We'll just keep with that. I have faith in the people of California to do whatever it is necessary for their state, and I sure have faith people of Iowa will do what's best. So you're getting some good results out of your beans, and you're getting ready for corn. Have you talked with other farmers who are already into the corn?
Yeah, I talked to a neighbor today that was out, and he's in a little earlier maturity range than I have. Moistures are in the 16-17% range. Like a lot of neighbors, we tend not to talk yields. It's kind of like fishing stories. So I just asked him if he's happy, and he said he was happy, and we'll just leave it at that. So but I'm eager to get out and do some corn. There's always these things going on, and this year's is kind of different. We got so many programs. The CFAP 2 program was rolled out on Friday, and sign up began on Monday, and that's the Coronavirus Food Aid Protection Act. So it's the second go around to that for us. This time it's a lot easier to do. It's just a call to your USDA office, and they have all the information, and they're able to run the numbers for you. So,
what was the acronym again?
CFAP 2, Coronavirus Food and Protection Act. I believe that's the acronym.
And why was this instituted? I mean, you can get COVID.
It's part of the CARES Act. So,
okay.
Like the farming business, or the market disruptions that was caused by coronavirus.
Oh, okay. All right. Now that makes sense.
Yep. There was a CFAP 1 that was rolled out earlier in the year, in late spring, and this is the second version of it. So a little more streamlined. I think the first go arounds, a lot of these programs, I think, were doled out pretty fast and loose.
Yeah,
and there was some people missed. I think they've acknowledged that a lot of these programs were not perfect. There was obviously some individuals and commodities and different groups that were not targeted or not able to get the benefit of it. But this one, they've streamlined it. It's pretty easy application and go forward. So just another alphabet soup acronym to deal with 2020.
All right, Steve Peterson's our guest. He's with the Webster County Farm Bureau, and of course, the Webster County Farm Bureau is bringing you this segment. We talked a couple of times over the last few months about some mysterious seed in the country, and you even gave me a flyer warning people if they got this seed not to plant it because it could come from China, or did come from China, and nobody could really trace this seed. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And where did that ever go?
I've never heard anything more than the initial. There was about 10 or 12 states that had identified different, packages mysteriously showing up.
Right.
And some of I think some of it's been identified in some different types of weeds and some herbs and just a lot of crazy stuff.
And nobody ever found out where it came from or why?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think it's, it could be just some guy in the basement in China trying to stir things up.
Well, there's a lot of suspicion around China. But Ewing tells me this morning that we're looking good as far as grain prices is concerned.
There has been a fairly nice increase in the last few weeks. The markets have been acting somewhat normal, I guess. China has been back in. They've been buying left and right here in the last few weeks, and that's definitely helped. It's still yet to be seen if they're going to be able to fulfill their commitments to the trade one or the phase one trade deal, but they are buying, so that's a good thing.
Are they buying our grain, corn, and soybeans, and pork as well?
Pork and beef and wheat and pretty much all of the above.
Wow. Okay. Well, that works. I don't see Greg Hoare anymore, but what's the latest on the African swine flu there? Do you have any idea?
Still, from what I understand, I just seen a report. It's been isolated to only that one animal, which was a wild boar in Germany.
Yeah, that was in Germany.
That has pretty much cut Germany off from most of its major trading partners because of that one incident. So other countries are definitely taking it seriously.
I'm told, I've never been to Germany, and I don't know much about the country other than World War II, but I'm told that they have some lush farmland there.
I believe so.
Oh, I would think so, yeah. There's a lot of Germans that came to this country, and farming was their skill. I mean, Germans are the German last names are the most common in our country, especially in some areas of the South. We have a few Swedes up here. I don't know if you knew that or not. But,
I'm afraid so.
Anyway, the point being, are they? Do you know if they're ag exporters? I suppose they have some sort of crop that they export.
I believe they wheat and corn. The European Union, they kind of keep to themselves in a lot of their grain because they have so many restrictions on non-GMOs. And that's something that with the Brexit, Britain leaving, there's definitely some openings and some discussions. I do not believe the United States can even go into discussions till the Brexit deal is whenever that completion date is, and I think it's here at the end of this year. So, the United States has always taken a stance that we want to be science-based and go with the actual science on here. The European Union early on took a kind of a very protectionist stance on non-GMO seeds, but they are definitely opening up, and I think there could be some discussions going forward. But Germany, and I know the Ukraine, that's considered the breadbasket of Europe.
Yeah, oh yeah, the Ukraine. Russia always hated to give up Ukraine because it was the breadbasket of the old Soviet Union in a lot of ways. It has, from what I've got to put that on my bucket list to go to Europe sometime. I've been to other parts of the world, but never Europe, where Western civilization really got to start. So I've got to plan a trip over there one of these days. Anyway, Steve Peterson is our guest, and he's with the Webster County Farm Bureau. This portion of the program brought to you by the Webster County Farm Bureau. Before we know it, we'll be in the legislative season. Is the Farm Bureau got anything up front that they would like to get done?
It's again, we just went through our policy session, and we're going to have to wait and see, how the elections go here in Iowa, and we'll have our playbook polished and ready to go by the time we open up the legislative season.
I guess we have talked about that before, yeah. And by the way, Charles Clayton will be on Thursday, and we will rotate Thursday at 4:30 appearances between Charles Clayton and Representative Ann Meyer. And we have had Luke Fleener on a couple of times, who's running for Webster County Sheriff. And if his opponent would like to appear, that's just fine with me. Just get a hold of me here at the radio station, 955-5656, extension 141. Does the Webster County Farm Bureau have any sort of position on county sheriff?
No, we don't get into that race. My personal opinion is I sometimes wonder why some of those races have party affiliations on them.
Well, a county sheriff, I used to know, but that was something that was put into our way of doing things a long time ago, and it made sense then. But, I had Representative Sexton on the air with me the other day, and he's been campaigning to get rid of daylight savings time, which that's another thing that's from the Wayback Machine as far as I'm concerned. But there are just people in our state who are used to the way
he might, Mike might have a legitimate argument this year, because I don't know who wants an extra hour of this time for 2020. if he's gonna get her done, this might be the year to do it.
Well, and he kind of told me that there's just some people down in Des Moines who are hidebound and don't want to see anything change. And I don't do the best with change myself, but I'm ready to see daylight savings time go away, or whatever use it served. And it was back in really when people plowed with horses that we needed this sort of thing. And people, there were a lot of kids out on the farm, who had to get to school, sometimes by walking to a schoolhouse a couple of miles away in different kinds of weather. But those days are gone, and I don't know why we still have that silly daylight savings time, but I guess we still do. Steve, as far as the markets are concerned, is there anything that might threaten where the markets are? I mean, we've talked about the trade looks really good right now, and the markets are up. Is there anything that can change that you see on the horizon?
Well, it's we refer to these as black swan events, and this year with the different diseases and COVID, I hope that we're done seeing these crazy events that really can send markets into turmoil. But I think everyone should be cautious. Look what's happened to Germany right now with one wild pig, and if something like that hits American shores, it could just turn things upside down in a heartbeat.
Boy, isn't that wild? That's just wild. I mean, yeah, Germany had to freak out. Germany, by the way, we have a lot of things in common with Germany. We like pork. Germans love pork. And they produce a lot of pork, or they used to anyway.
Right. And we've had these events, a few years back, there was mad cow disease, I believe in Canada. That was a, kind of a threat. We had the avian swine flu that swept through here a few years back, even locally. I know everyone's pretty vigilant, and our food security here in America is second to none. So hopefully, we'll keep this at bay, and that won't be an issue. But something like that can send shockwaves through the marketplace.
Boy, it really could. Greg Hora was talking about unusual containers that arrived in the United States from China earlier this year, just as spring was on us. And I never heard any more about that either, where it came from, why it was here, or anything.
Yeah, I think they were pet treats or the chew toys or something.
Something, yeah. But were they contaminated, or what was the deal there?
There wasn't any. I don't think there ended up being anything, but that would be an issue where something could come into the country, and that's how easy it could happen. So, because of course, like the chew toys, I don't probably believe are regulated by the Food and Drug Administration or the USDA, or it's just kind of an overlooked item, and that's a backdoor way for a potentially infected, pathway to get into our system here.
All right, Steve Peterson is with the